Welcome everyone to the introduction to model printing featuring Jed Archibald and Jessica Knott. My name is Ilan Barlev and I'm part of the channel management team here at Accurata, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's speakers. Jed Archibald, owner and founder of Archibald Aesthetics and Archibald Digital, as well as lead technician and educator for Archibald Associates. With over 20 years of experience and a unique insight to the job of a technician, Jed has pioneered ways to blend classic techniques with new technology. It has been a pleasure for the Accurata team to have Jed involved in some of our research and development projects, and we are thrilled that he is here today to share his skills and experience with us all. And Jessica Knott, a dental technician by profession, previously at the United States Air Force, and now part of the team here of Accurata Americas. As an integral part of the Accurata team, Jessica has worked not just on R&D project, but also is widely recognized for her skills and talent in educating technicians and clinicians alike on the benefits of adopting new technologies. Jed and Jessica will be presenting the entire model workflow, from receiving the scan to the finished product. Jessica will start out with working with model scans and various software, focusing on best practices to ensure that your own workflow is as smooth as possible. Jed will then take a deep dive into the 3Shape Model Builder, as one of the most popular software for technicians and clinicians alike. Then we'll go over the Accurata printing workflow. How do you set up your print and your printer for success? Jed and Jessica will also show you a flawless curing and cleaning process. As one of the most integral parts of 3D printing, post-processing should not be overlooked. And in the last step, Jed Archibald, the digital wizard himself, will share a well-kept secret about the model process. We're finishing this webinar with a live Q&A session with Jed and Jessica, so stay tuned until the end to get some answers to some pressing questions. Before we start with this webinar, we're going to give the floor to Eugene Roisengart, a great friend of the Accurata team and himself a greatly skilled denturist and technician, who inspired Jed and Accurata to support the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee and who will give us some insight into where your donations will go to. Thank you for joining us, Eugene.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the webinar. First and foremost, big thank you to the folks at Accurata for organizing this wonderful webinar, and special thanks to Jed Archibald and Jessica Knott for lecturing. As I mentioned previously, all the donations that will happen today will go directly to United Ukrainian American Relief Committee, and also 10% of the profits from sales at Accurata will go to them as well. Julie will actually post a little link in the comment section for you guys to donate. And thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for participating, and hopefully we can make a big difference for these folks in Ukraine. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to 3D Print for Peace. I'm Jessica Knott from Accurata Americas. I'm very honored today to be joined by one of my colleagues and close friend from the years, Jed Archibald. First, I'd like to say thank you very much to Eugene for those information and kind words, and for the inspiration to make this event happen. I know Jed and I were both inspired, and thank you to the Accurata team for making this all possible, and the hard work that's been put into that. So today I would like to talk about some of the clinical solutions that I like to use with the Alpha 3D system. My current design of choice software is going to be the Medit Model Builder. I chose this particular software because it does have a seamless integration into Alpha 3D, and then also it's free of charge, and it's not restricted on input for your scan data. So it's open to any desktop or intraoral scan by STL, PLY, or an object file. So it's a really true open source platform that we can all kind of appreciate coming from Accurata. First, I'd like to start off and show you how I create a solid model based off a case that Jed Archibald has recently received. Like I said, I really like this platform because it's very simple to use. For a solid model, situation, I have about a 5-step process. Here in the initial, you just have view options where you can change the orientation, the part that you're viewing, the scan data. Secondary, it uses an automatic function to identify area of interest that you want to keep based off your input in your forms. You can increase or decrease this data with the expand section, so you can capture everything you want. You also have 2 other options to use to identify crucial data. One is going to be kind of a cutting tool here that you can create using points in area to identify an area of interest that's important scan data. My favorite is probably this little brush tool. You have 3 different sizes, and depending on your zoom, you can really identify some of the small detail areas. Because this scan was such a nice scan provided from the doctor, I decided to just use all of the scan data so we can see how that translates into a model untrimmed. Secondary to identifying your area that you're going to be working on, it provides here a secondary option to make last-minute edits that maybe you'd missed before the scans were identified. Also, you can make an inverted selection. And then there's a few tools here at the end, which are kind of simple mesh tools that can help you fill your holes if your scan has data, which is an automated feature, or there's some actual custom settings here where you can remove, smooth, morph, and you can adjust that size. So really nice, simple tools here, not too much, and very applicable to day-to-day use here in the clinic or in the laboratory. The next step is you're going to do an alignment. This is based off a 3-point alignment. I'm going to do one here just between the midline and then in the central groove of the first molars as well. If you can't get this reference point, at the bottom you can see that there is a 4-point occlusal plane reference to use that automation. And then you can also do individual adjustments by verifying that midline on these cross sections and also your plane of occlusion. I like to give it a slight anterior tilt into that to more replicate natural jaw function when creating models. The next step is actually creating the model base. I really like this software because it retains the information that you previously used. So your model size that you've identified, if you like your models hollow, if you like flow holes, the location of those flow holes. Once you use the model software once, every time you reopen it, it remembers your previous settings, and you can adjust those at any time. And then it continues to refer back to those settings. So really this process is going to be opening up the base build platform to build, and then automatically hitting preview if you have your settings that were previously saved. Here I've just went over a couple options and decided to bevel the edges well for easy release off the build platform. So let's take a look at these models now and what they generate out to be. And these were all previous settings. You can see I have a hollow model with nice flow holes, a beveled edge for easy release for printing, and very good coverage of the data that we need to be able to complete this case. This is the die function. Commonly with veneers, it's very difficult to make removable dies, and that's something we're going to talk on later. So I'm going to go ahead and skip on this section. Next, just for your solid models, is going to be your articulating area. I find this very simple. Each articulator is labeled at the bottom. It's easy to add a fourth. For a full arch case, I do prefer 4 points of articulation. I place the 2 in the anterior just behind the canine point, and then the 2 posterior for stability. I like the placement just behind the canine in the anterior, so we're not impeding that aesthetic view for that technician or doctor for review. And that makes it very easy for them just to be able to complete. The very last step to this option is going to be identifying your part that you've created in Model Builder. So you can see here, it automatically generates that part's name based off the form entry that you created for the case photo. You do not have to type it in like most common model softwares. It's just automatically generated. And once you can identify a placement to where the whole text becomes blue, that means it's good for connection and will print well. A couple other options here. They do have, you can edit the text name there. You can change the size, the depth, if you would like that as an engraving or as an embroidery process. And also there's a couple of different textiles there at the bottom. And that is the complete process of how you would do a solid model. Doing it in this technique, as a laboratory technician, I can usually complete this case in less than 2 minutes on creating that model. I'm sure there's some clinicians out there using this software day to day that could probably beat me on that speed, but I do find it as a very easy, consistent, and stable way to easily create models from any type of scan data. So next, I want to talk about, well, how do we use these dyes for margination and to finalize our final prosthesis? I like to go ahead and take the model back in on a secondary case and then create dyes individually for this case. So my working model then becomes a solid case and a secondary set of individual dyes. This is a process that many crown and bridge technicians use in an analog process or in a 3D printing process. So it's a really good choice that's tested, tried, and proven that easily relates into this software. So you have two options when marking the margins to create a dye here into the Medit software. I prefer to use manual because I like to use light reflection and also the tool here, which actually identifies the area that you're trying to balance off of with that tool that's similar to 3Shape. So that's a really nice added piece as well. So for this specific case, because it is a veneer case, I'm only really focused on the facial gingival margin. And for the back portion, I'm just going to go around the base of the tooth where that gingival portion meets. And that's going to create a very nice clean dye for my use, for any technician to use. Now, the reason why I decided to not do a full removable dye process and have a solid in individuals is because it's very difficult with these cases, especially in veneers and in the anterior region, if you're limited on space and approximately. You can see here, even my last kind of marginal movements, I'm really trying to focus and find where is that connection point because we were running out of so much space. With this creation, it doesn't matter if you're using a laboratory software or a clinical laboratory software, you're going to have to spend some time, determining the access and insertion rate of these dyes in position because you are so limited on space. And just after we get finished with this, I'm going to show you one of my tricks that I use. And Jed is later going to come into 3Shape and show you how he can master it for all use. But this is what best works for me here. And then you can identify and see. We will have 6 dyes. All right, let's go ahead and jump in to the Alpha application that's located in the Medit app box. It's Alpha 3D Connection. It's really nice that Medit was able to partner with Accurata to do this. It's really streamlined the workflow. After those parts are created, you can simply click on the application at the top right-hand corner, and your parts are automatically placed into the Alpha 3D software. This is really nice for laboratories and clinics alike. So first I start off, I want to show you how I nest this prosthetics. I start with my largest model first and orient that into the corner so I can gain more space for my die positioning. Now to be able to print my dies flat on the build platform, I'm using our Select Base tool that you can see is just located on the left below orientation. I love this tool for a number of reasons. Not only am I able to snap a part to the plate, I can also use it as a quick orientation tool by selecting any plane on any part that I'm actually going to be printing. Commonly, if I'm trying to nest and maximize my space, I do use these dies normally in the middle of my horseshoe areas just to keep all that space for the larger parts so I can get more models, more dies, and really maximize just our overall build platform space. I'm going to again use this Select Base tool, even on the model, to snap it and orient it into the orientation. But just for an example, I'm going to show you how it's possible to actually print this flat with that beveling and flow, or if you wanted to orient the model into the Z-axis to maybe you have a larger model to fit into the plate or an implant model. Anything over 10 to 15 degrees is a starting point. And then I use my application model supports, auto-generated, which takes less than 5 seconds. At that time, I'm able to go to Slice, select my material manufacturer, the resin type I'm going to use. Today, that's going to be Curo Element White. And then at my standard setting for Z-Access, and slice and save. You can also see not only is the MEDIT process maybe a less than 2-minute design, but even the alpha software connection is a 1 to 2 minute design or completion as well. So you can actually go from raw scan data to ready for the printer in less than 5 minutes once you've really trained yourself into these processes and accepted, workflows and developed and worked with your team to identify, what works best for you guys. Not only does MEDIT offer, can I just go one slide back, please, Akretta? So not only does MEDIT offer the model material, the model builder itself, they also have a multiple other applications that you can use from like Compare and Temporary. So I like this that, again, you're providing a lot of solutions free of charge, open source, and that's with the Akretta Alpha 3D connection just kind of puts them standing above. Now, sometimes even these softwares from MEDIT or 3Shape are kind of restricted, and I'm a big fan of using other third-party softwares like Blender for Dental, who is really a mesh repair software. So if I can't get it done there, I'm going to have to go old school, and I don't mind that as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at what the case we were able to achieve is. Well, sorry, so the case that we were able to achieve was the model there and those individual dies. My workaround for any software that you're creating a die for in an Anterior 6 case is 4 dies and 2 dies. This gives you 2 separate working models, but you're also going to have solid contact points, which are very important when completing veneers. And then also you'll have removable dies for, finalizing and margination. As a crown and bridge technician previously, I always preferred to work off of 2 working models anyways, check your contacts twice. So this is a great solution that can be used in any model building software when you're working in the anterior to provide a better solution. Now I'm going to go ahead and take it to Jed Archibald and show you, like Elon mentioned himself, the wizard. He's going to give you 6 full dies that are removable, and I can't wait to learn myself. So go ahead, Jed.
Well, hello, thank you. And awesome stuff. MEDIT is definitely disrupting the industry by making things as user-friendly and actually very innovative. They're kind of scaring a lot of the other scanning companies out there. So kudos to them. Great job. Keep it up. I love stuff like that. I'm actually going to jump into 3Shape and how I actually use Model Builder, which can be a little cumbersome and maybe a little too overcomplicated for people, and sometimes 3Shape is known for stumbling upon itself, for being a little too smart. So you see here as we open up Model Builder, this is just kind of the simple workflow to keep it simple and have it work. So you set your plane, you trim your models, and then you jump right into it. So luckily, hopefully you get a good scan from the doctor, so you don't have to do any cleanup. Sometimes you do have to improve or clean up the scan. If you have any holes, triangles, any cord left behind, those kind of things will definitely cause just certain death in 3Shape. As long as you don't have those things, it goes really good. But if you have those things, you need to look out for them and cut them out here at the trimming line. I make sure I just trim them out. Even if it's close to a working area, you have to get rid of them if you need to make 3Shape work. So look out for those little imperfections, blemishes, triangles, holes. Those are all things that you want to look out for. So the trimming tool, I wish that one model building company would actually incorporate a plane cut for trimming your models. I don't know why we have to draw everything as we go across here. I mean, we could plane cut them and be quite a bit faster, but we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe MEDIT will get there first. But as you trim your models, it's very simple. You can see here at the edges of the scan, you can see where the information kind of gets a little wonky and gets a little lost. Those are things, if you leave those things, that's absolutely going to cause problems. And here on the back of the arch, you can see how we have kind of where things get really confused. You want to make sure that you really cut that stuff out. So in 3Shape, you do have the option when you're designing your crowns, you have the option to actually relieve your tissue a little bit. You can see in the bottom left corner, I have the relief area set at 1.5, which gives you a little bit of working room. So you mill or you print a little bit of margin protection, and that just gives you a little bit of room so you don't actually have to manually relieve your printed models. So it's just kind of a neat little setting there. And you can also print a solid model, make your crowns part of the model at that point. But that's kind of a different story. So in selecting your dies, you can make this very complicated on yourself, or you can make it very easy. When we actually look at dies, I look at my die type and I make sure I select one that does not have a pin. So I do a pinless die, but I have a pinhole in the model. This is going to allow me to have nice flat dies to put on the build plate, nice and flat, and I don't need supports or anything pretty much across the board. So at the very end of this, I'm going to give you a screenshot of my actual 3Shape DME settings that you can try and give it a shot for yourself. And it's really just a starting point, just because the resin and the printer and everything you do is going to have an overall effect on the fit of your dies. So when it comes to your insertion direction, it inserts them at the plane that you set, which is not going to be right. They'll be coming out in front of the model. So rather than move them individually, you can move each die individually, but then you run into ones colliding with the others. So the best thing to do is just look at it at the insertion direction you want to be and use that set insertion direction as you move around the case. And that way, when you're done with that, you'll make sure that you have dies. They're a little slanted, but they're not colliding with each other. Okay, and we have nice flat dies that are going to stick really, really well to the build plate. Okay, so super simple. Just use that set insertion direction. Don't try to manually move them. You'll just be playing with that for days, and you'll hate yourself. So we should be moving on here. I'm showing you something. I don't know what it is. I'm showing you something. Oh, I'm just showing you how to manually move it again. All right. So here we go into the actual making your articulator. I really like to use the iTero articulators in my lab. It does add a little bit more to your build plate, and it does not allow you to kind of interlock the models and things like that. But it's just really a simple functioning articulator, and they're very cheap. I want to say they're about $120 from iTero. So very functional. So similar to the Medit, you can add a little ID tag and you can move it around. You can't do much else. So you can't really add logos. You can't flip it upside down. I know people keep asking that. How come on the upper arch we can't flip it? So it's you look at it right side up when you're looking at the model. And then you jump ahead and you get to preview your case. At this point, if you want to get crazy, you can kind of sculpt that transition line. You can get rid of some blemishes if you want to go for aesthetic reasons, but for functional reasons, you don't need to do anything here. So again, we go into the last part of our model settings, and here's where you can choose a hollow model. And I like to choose either a 2 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter wall, which is really thin. You'll notice your resin will go really, really far that way. And in 3Shape, similar to Jessica, I like to put the vent holes at the bottom of the model so it can vent really well. So I showed you that right there. And here you go. You get to preview your final model. Make sure everything's good. It should be good to go. Okay, so we have our vent holes at the bottom. And you'll see here, as I ghost out the model a little bit, how you have access to the dies, but yet we still have that flat die bottom. Now that's because we chose a pinless die, but a pinhole model. And you can see that heavy bevel I have at the bottom of the dies. That's also part of the DME settings, and that helps compensate for that flash and burn in, which we will see a little bit later. Okay, so that's the easy way to do a removable die model, and I'll show you why I think that's still important when you're talking about upper level type digital dentistry. And maybe I'm a little crazy there, but I'm going to show you why. So I do have a slide for you, and this is for your DME slide. It should be a 3Shape slide. There it is. There it is. Perfect. So here, please take a screenshot of this, and you can try this DME as a starter. Now, like I said, you may have to adjust one or two of the little tolerances there just to work with your individual printer. But if you want to do removable dies and give it a shot, this is a great place to start with 3Shape. So, and I know there's many other model softwares out there. I don't mean to discredit them or anything. This is just what we have time to share today. So I think that takes care of our creating our models. And now I'm going to turn the time back over to Jess on how to actually incorporate it into Alpha 3D, which really is probably the king of the crop when it comes to nesting software right now. I'm not saying that just because Accurate is here. It really is. They really did an awesome job as far as nesting software. When you use them all, it's got what you need, but at the same time, it's about as user-friendly as it gets. So I really suggest it for everyone. So back to you, Jess.
Hey, thanks, Jed. I'm just going to speak on it just a little bit. That last video that we watched, not only did it have that seamless meta integration into Alpha 3D, but the actual process. And, it's really nice that we have it set up into those 3 steps, and you have a visual check at the beginning, the end, and final slicing to validate that your information you've inputted is correct. I would say, 90% of the failures that do come from it, it's an avoidable error just by double checking your information. So check your inputs twice. And let's see here too, sorry. So you'll double check these inputs twice here at the printing system. And like I said, the orientation of the area and the support application. So those are individually actually designed based off the material chemistry and the part application that you're trying to print. So yes, I was using solid models here, but we have those support applications for splints, crown and bridge, castable materials. Each one of these materials need a different type of support system, and we're very fortunate to have our engineers spend the time to be able to create this. Once you auto support, it's just simply save and slice and just reviewing that information again. So 3-step system and the automated support function. Also, please be aware that we will be releasing in the future a new AI alpha version that will come on the market. And this software will also identify the part you're trying to place, so it will automatically orient and support your item. And we're seeing a lot of great success and outcomes from that AI software. So stay tuned to see where we're growing even from where we're currently at, which, like Jed said, is a great solution for pretty much any clinic or laboratory. Thanks, Jed.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. So once you actually get your file created and you get it nested and you go through that, now we actually start to get the building. We're actually starting to do something. Let's make something, for crying out loud. Let's hurry and make it. So I want to show you, before you actually start your print, something I do. I check with many printers that come in, and I actually modify my build plate. Warranty excluded from this, okay? But you're hearing this from me. This is what I do. So the Accurate build plate that you get comes extremely polished. It's a nice build plate, but it comes too polished, all right? And you can easily remove a lot of your prints just with your hands. And I don't like that. I want them to stick. I would rather have a hard time removing them than have any come off due to just coming off in the build time. So what I actually do with this build plate, other build plates have different surfaces and they're fine. But with this build plate, if it's too polished, I actually glass bead it. And then I use a little bit of steel wool, or you can see this little 3M pad here. And I actually kind of shine it back up a little bit. So it's not just a straight glass bead surface. This actually gives me really close to a chemical etch surface. You can see here, I'm just adding a little bit of that polish back, because the glass bead surface on its own, you'll have models just about break on there. Okay, so that's sticking a little too much. And you can play with this with just about any of your printers. If you have prints that are coming off too easy, rough it up a little bit. If they're not coming off easy enough, then you need to polish it a little bit. Okay, but you want to make sure, regardless of what you do, that you make sure you clean it with alcohol really well. The last thing you want to do is get any of those metal shavings or residue left in your vat or mixed in with your resin. That's what you don't want. So again, we're probably voiding the warranty here. Sorry, Accurata, but this will save you from a lot of headaches and a lot of misprints. So all you guys on that 3D printing group on Facebook, especially when you have prints that are just coming off, you don't know why, it's not the settings, it's the build plate. 90% of the time it's the build plate. So let's move on from there. I got that clean, and let's move on to mixing resins. And this is really cool. This is something that's really neat and unique with some of the newer resins coming out, and really unique to Accuretta and their resins. So with their model resins, they have a Curo Element White and a Curo Element Beige. Now their white is actually more of a cream, and their beige is more of a chocolate. So someone's having a little issue, or maybe their lights are bad where they're making these, but you can see here's the beige that I call a chocolate. It's more like chocolate milk, and maybe that's because I'm a fat person. I'm always relating stuff to food. But you can see here, you can actually mix these, and this will not change the settings within Alpha 3D. You can pretty much mix these 50-50, 70-30, and the print settings will be the same. So that's a really powerful, neat thing that is very unique to Accuretta in these resins. So you can see here, you can kind of create your own custom model color, which I think it's important, especially if you're talking about the aesthetic lab. Your model is actually a representation of you, and it's an extension of you, and it's an expression of you, and it's also a sales piece for the patient. So being able to come up with your own custom colors is very powerful and very cool. So you can see I'm mixing it here. And I like to use these. These are simple Home Depot little buckets. They're great for storing them. If you come up with a great mix you like, those are great. I also have these drawers. There's different ways to store your resins. I make sure that you store them in a clean, I use the original packaging, in a clean, dark, dry place. You want to make sure that you take care of your vats. If you keep everything clean, you'll eliminate so many issues. A lot of 3D printing just comes down to making sure your stuff is clean. Now, before you print, say you come in the next day and you actually have the resin sitting here in the vat, you know the different colors and different chemical makeup, it actually solidifies. You can see how we have some sediment down at the bottom. Rather than using a spatula, I actually like to use just a business card, and I drag it, okay? I don't push into it, I drag it. This will make sure you don't scratch or mess up your vat screen at all. It won't do anything to it. It'll keep it nice and clean, and it won't harm it. The reason I use a business card, though, is because I can directly just throw that thing right in the trash, okay? And I don't have to worry about cleaning spatulas all day long. So it's a great little time saver tip. So I have some slides here of actually what the mixing results look like, okay? So when you come to mixing resins, this is the Curo Element White and the Curo Element Beige. Again, you have cream and chocolate. And on the next slide, you'll see these different ratios, which actually are really pretty models. And you can do these at home and try these yourself as a starting point, or you can actually modify them. So if we see the next slide, there we go. So if you look at this next slide, you can see where that model on the bottom left, that's actually just a 1/8 of the beige mixed into the white, whereas the one on the right is just a 1/4 of the beige mixed into the white. So you can see the variety and variables here are endless, but you get wonderful prints, and you can create so many different things and make your prints unique. Again, it's all about making it an expression of you. So next, we're going to move on to cleaning. We got stuff printed. What do we do next? So we should have a washing video here. Some things I do to wash. So I have this Monster Ultrasonic, which I really love, okay? I love ultrasonics just because when you have hollow models with the vent holes, the ultrasonic will actually get underneath the model really well, rather than you break it off and you have that kind of gooey center, almost like a lava cake. Again, I'm a fat person, forgive me. Then you have that gooey center that kind of oozes out. The ultrasonic actually cleans inside, and with removable dyes, it's really good. So you can see here how hard it is for me to pop off those dyes, but they pop off clean. All right, I don't have any dyes just falling off in the vat during the prints, which is great. And since I just did this build plate, this is actually going to be stuck on there really well. And we have the infamous, runaway model that shoots across the lab. There you go. But that's okay. It didn't break. It came off well, and that build plate's going to be good to go. So that's out of the ultrasonic. That's just the one step. All right. And it came out very, very, very clean. So I then move it into a second stage wash. And you can see here, we do have a little bit of flash with the sole settings, which is okay. We can deal with that. So what you do is you want to move it to a second wash for ultra clean. And if you want to go super, super clean, what you want to do when it comes out of the second wash is go ahead and irrigate it. So I actually have an irrigation bottle of isopropyl, and this way I irrigate it, and I make sure I get it right away. Now this will make sure that your prints come out crazy clean and always perfectly clean. So especially if you're doing splints and night guards, this is a great thing to do for those, because you want to have a separate bath for that, just so you don't have any cross-contamination there, right? But this will be a huge, huge addition to you. So rather than changing out your wash stations left and right, you can add this irrigation step, and it'll actually prolong those washes quite a bit longer. So Jess is going to show you the actual Accuretta wash station, which is really cool. They have a new one.
If we can get a slide put up, please. So currently this year, Accuretta started carrying our complete lineup for the system, including a wash solution called the Cleanie. Really very functional, dual tank, which I love. And it's very simple to use. The tanks are not complicated. They're very easy to clean. And so we were able to provide a lot of solutions with traditional wash stations that were problematic here over the past few years. So I prefer normally, a 5-minute dirty and a 3-minute clean. Another interesting fact about this wash station is that these buckets remove off. So if you're able to just get your hands on or purchase just the bucket portion, you can take this into a 2-way wash to a 10-way wash, depending on how many buckets you want. They just easily lift off and very easily done. I do like to have, just at least for my models and my heavier dyes here, the 2-part 5-minute dirty, 3-minute clean. And that's very successful and widely used kind of as a global standard. Go ahead and we'll take a look at, I guess, Jed, are you going to showcase some curing, or is that me on curing? So to go ahead, Jed, do you have anything on curing, or is that directly to me?
Other than you should cure, that's all you.
Okay. So Jed says you should cure, and Jed has some of the coolest curing boxes available here in the United States. So luckily he has a new Curie, and it's great because it's class 1 and class 2 biocompatible. Our wavelength is between about 365, I believe, to almost up to 420. So we have a lot of availability of what we can cure. You can see just alone here, 7 or 8 different resin manufacturers. Each one of those resin manufacturers are going through an official validation to validate the Accuretta printer, wash station, and this curing solution, including FDA listing and Health Canada listings, CE certification globally. So I'm very excited that we're taking our time to validate our system with these resin manufacturers, because at the end of the day, you're only as safe as the material that you're using. So we believe in those partnerships heavily, and we're happy that we can provide an open system, not only in printing, but also in curing. And Jed, do you want to talk about maybe a customizable setting? I know you like to do those.
Yeah, you can also, it's open, so you can actually introduce a customizable setting, which is really unique. And I think it's a good way to get bang for your buck out of any curing unit out there. It's nice to have customizable settings so you can do your composites and other resins as well. I mean, if you're like me, you like to play around and try lots of things. You don't always play in-house. And so there's very few units on the market that are completely open and allow you to do a well variety of material. So this is a great little unit. So it's really impressive. So they did a good job. So I think we're going to move on to, and we might have some more stuff on that if you guys have questions later, but I think we're going to move on to kind of the dyes, why I use removable dyes. Why am I crazy and still doing that? Is that right?
Yeah, Jed, let's go ahead and move on to that. And This is the super secret trade secrets of Jed Archibald. So everyone have their listening ears on, because obviously Jed takes a lot of time to develop some of these R&D items to make these a reality and a possible workflow here in the industry. So I'm excited to see this, because obviously, being a crown and bridge technician, I wish I had this knowledge when I was sitting at the bench, not while I'm printing years later. So go ahead and get started, Jed.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that these are massive secrets. I mean, really, these are just old techniques used with new equipment. The reason why I use removable dies in a model is really because it's a constant calibration tool for my printing, my resin, and everything else that goes on. Now, if I have a solid model and separate dies, let's say that the printer, the vat's getting a little scratched and you're getting a few blemishes on the die, you won't notice that, right? And you might have a crown that fits a little weird, so that might affect how you adjust the margin. That might affect how you adjust the fit, because you're assuming that the crown is off and not the die. Or maybe you have that question where, like, wow, is it my die that's wrong, or did the mill have a problem? Is it my burrs in the mill getting old? Okay. So the reason why I use removable dies is because it's a fantastic, indefinite way to continue to validate your equipment is working right. Okay. So you get your dies that fit right. And if there's any blemish or any mistakes happening, you see there along the body of the die, it'll show up. And that is a great sign that, hey, it's time to either replace my film, or it's a time to maybe adjust my settings, or what is going on here. Okay. So that way you have a constant validation tool, which is a necessity. You have to have that in 3D printing. If you want to rely on your models and insist that models are going to be the ultimate guide for you, you have to do this step. So as you see here with the Accurata settings, some printers will create a little bit of this burn-in flash for you, where it actually attaches to the build plate. This is not an issue. Now you can adjust those DMEs in 3 shape to increase that bevel, okay, and try to get it to where these just drop in. Or you can take this little step of just removing that, okay? And you don't have to be precise, as long as you leave some bottom as a stop and remove all the walls so it goes down, you will be good to go. So that's the main reason why I use removable dies. Yes, it's a little more work and it's harder, but it pays itself off with every single print I do in the lab. Okay, and it makes sure that I'm doing everything perfect every single time, and I don't get too far out of spec. Okay, now if we move on to another really cool thing, all right, because I'm kind of an old school technician, I do like analog ways of verification. All right, so I've created for you guys a calibration cube, and this is also a fantastic way if you're bringing in different resins, if you're bringing in different printers and things like that. Let's say you have a resin that you know works, you have cases that have been successful, large cases, intense cases, and you have a setup, okay, that works perfectly for you. What you want to do is print your calibration cube setup here, and I'll provide this for you guys. All right, so you have that as your baseline standard. Now you bring in a new resin. Next slide, please. Now you bring in a new resin, and you can then verify with that. So you can see we actually have this, just a simple shape, okay, a little bit of a bevel to it, about a 4-degree taper. And on the next slide, when you actually seat that little tri-lobe in, it should completely bottom out in the bottom, and there should be no play left or right. So there should be no gap on the bottom and no play. Now, if you have a little gap or a little play, then that tells you that something is off one way or the other, and you need to adjust it, right? So it's very easy to throw in one of these with every other print, maybe once a week, and just make sure that things are still in spec. So again, it's another way to take things to another level of making sure things are accurate and correct. So on the last slide here of it, you'll actually see, so you bring in a new resin, you have a new printer. These are all on different printers, different resins. Okay, but I'm getting the same consistent result with them. All right, so that tells me, hey, this setup, this calibration is working really well. So we're good to go. So it's a great way of having an analog way of verifying. I know we can rescan a model that you've printed and align it, and we can see whether it's within, 10 microns, 15 microns. And we love that, but who's going to realistically do that on a consistent basis? No one. No one. Only when you have an issue or problem will you do that. Okay, where this is something that you can do once a week, once a month. Just throw it on the build plate with other things going on, and you are good to go. Okay, so I will share a link for that as we go on. And another reason why I use removable dies is this really cool technique that I came up with called the magic stump technique. And hopefully we have a video for it. If there is sound with it, plug your ears because we don't have the rights to it. Or I will say that right now, I do not own the rights to this music. Let's see. Woohoo! No music. We're good to go. Not going to get sued. See, we have this really cool technique where actually you can see here I have on the top right a well of isopropyl alcohol, and I have just some simple Sharpies. And you can see here, these are intense Sharpies, and I actually have ordered quite a few of these. I'm playing around with these. These are anime Sharpies, flesh tone Sharpies for anime cartoons, and those work well too. But you can see here with a little bit of the alcohol, it actually suspends and dilutes the marker, and it allows you to transfer it to the die. And when it dries, it actually is now a permanent stain on the die. Now, if you go too far, you can soak the die in alcohol and remove it completely. Okay, so it's 100% removable, but also 100% versatile. And in the day where we're doing so many all ceramics, different types of composites, these newer types of zirconias, the color and effect of the stump is absolutely vital. It changes everything, right? And so this is an easy way. I now don't have to make a composite stump. If I'm working on a case and I'm just lining them up and it's like, oh, I need to make a custom stump for this, I look at the photo and I'm like, oh, I hurry and pull out the die, I color it real quick, and away we go. So it's actually a more accurate, faster, easier way of getting a custom die than you've ever had before. And you can steam this all day long, and it doesn't come off. And my doctors love it because you put it back in the model, and it looks like you took, a million years on it when actually it went pretty fast. You just took some care here. Okay, so it's really a cool technique. I urge you to give it a go, and we can move on here. We can end this. I have that video on my website if you want, and you can actually see some slides here with our Accuretta models of how this works in real life. Okay, so you can see here we have our Accuretta model. So I have the model where I actually this more colorful model, that's the one that's at the 1/4 ratio of the beige added in, the chocolate. All right, so that's my model. But then the dies on themselves, those are just white dies by themselves. So that's the Accuretta white, which is really pretty material. It's about a 1-in-1, which is absolutely perfect for this. So you can see here's your stumps and these crowns, all ceramic crowns. These are Emax crowns with no color. Okay, so you have some pretty crowns colored. Okay, there you go. Here we go. And on the next slide, you can see the effect of what happens if you have one that's a little mismatched. All right, that's a case that's going to come back. If I don't color that stump and compensate for that here in the lab, that case is coming back. All right, that's not a successful case. And again, you can even go to a more intense level with the next slide. And here you have, which is very common, you'll have a metal post, right? Or a metal filling, and they didn't want to take it out all the way, right? They're like, oh, I left it. It was good. Okay, I get those a lot. That does make things a little complicated for me on the lab side, but we can compensate for it. If I don't, you can see with the photo on the right how much of that is transferring through and how that changes the restoration and how that can create nothing but problems for you in remakes in the lab. So this is a super easy, practical technique that you can incorporate with digital technology. All right, so we're just mixing a little bit of the old using the new. So those are simple techniques. That's why I do it. That's why I do removable models. It works for me, and it keeps me on the straight and narrow all day long. So that's those are beautiful models from Accuretta, really cool resin. So thank you, Accuretta, for this webinar. I think we're going to turn the time over now to a little bit of a Q&A session. Is that right?
Hey, Jed.
Yeah.
Accuretta, if you want, I know there might be a few final slides. If we want to start with those, or Elon, happy to do so. Please take guidance. Hello, Elon.
Hey guys.
To 3D Print for Peace and joining us from Taiwan, 1 a.m. your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for your great presentation. I definitely learned a lot, and great tips and tricks. I hope our audience learned a lot as well. I'm sure they did. So yeah, first of all, thank you so much. And we would just like to mention now that we are donating right now. We're collecting donations, and all our donations will be going to the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee. Same like our friend mentioned earlier, Eugene Rosenberg, that we will be donating everything going there. Also, right now we're taking questions, so please, dear audience, you have the questions tab down below. If you have any questions for Jed or for Jessica, write them down now, and we'll be happy to take them from you guys. Also, one more thing to mention as questions are coming in. We will be donating also off of our bundles that we're offering now on our website. We do have 3 different kinds, whether you're starting your digital experience or you're more experienced with, we have 3 different kinds, and 10% of those profits will be going for donations as well from Accurata. So we also have a few of our trusted partners in the US that will be also, pledging 10% from their sales, including Cadre, Primotech, Young's Dental, and Chairside Lab Solutions. So thank you for them and their support. And let's try to relieve as much as we can in that area in Ukraine. So we can start it off. I see we do have some questions coming in. So Jed, Jessica, if you guys are ready, I will shoot them. So the first one comes in from Mark Welch. Do you use supports for models and dies? I'll direct that for Jed. Or rock, paper, scissors, that's also fine.
Jed can answer this one, but we do the same exact thing.
Yeah, I don't. For 2 reasons. One, the practical reason of, if the model's shorter, it prints faster. But 2, if I design it right, it'll stick really well, and I don't need the supports to help it stick. And then that's one less thing I have to clean up. So again, it's kind of a twofold process. I get faster printing, and with the designs we showed you today, we showed you how you can put them down there flat and have success all day long. So I don't.
All right, great. Jessica, any follow-ups?
Yeah, and anyone that says, hey, I don't like to print them flat because they're hard to release, I really love that added feature and Medit that I showcased on having that bevel option. That's going to help you release those models easier. And, if I have some customer that calls me for support and they failed a model and it's supported, I'm instantly scared. Is there supports in the vat? Is there something that could be impeding this next vat? This is why we have to do a clean vat system for this. If it was just a solid model, I know it's a solid part, so it saves a lot of time, but I would say that model printing is the only indication that I do actually print flat with. So.
All right, that works for me. Great, let's move along for the second question. We have from Eugene. Jed, where did you get that silicon mat for post-processing?
Oh man, this is great question. That's actually go on Amazon and look for silicone mats for pets. And it's a large silicone mat, and it has kind of the beveled edges on the side so nothing spills out. And it's for your pets, for their dog bowls and their water bowls. So when they're drinking and stuff, stuff doesn't spill out onto your floor. So type in Amazon, pet silicone mat, something along those lines, and they'll come up, and you'll find some that are, 2 to 5 feet in size. So really cheap. They're like $10. Really a cool item. I have them all over, so they're really fun.
Awesome, good. Jed, do you have any other kind of equipment that you have that would solve people's problems? For example, this mat or anything else you have in your kit?
I think. Okay, yeah, I'm unmuted. So the other thing I look at really when you're looking at spatulas, the one thing that I do like for different spatulas, for different sizes, different printers, are actually if you go to your local hardware store, and these are paint scrapers, okay, not window scrapers, but paint scrapers, and you can get all different kinds of thicknesses. They're usually just like $2 a piece, but you can get some that are really long, which are really nice if you have really large printers, and others that are different flexes. So sometimes if you do have models that are sticking really hard and hard to get off, if you just go to one size bigger spatula, it's just got enough leverage that it just pops them right off, and it makes it more effortless. So you can kind of go get a few different ones, and it makes your life pretty easy too. Kind of fun to play with.
Awesome. That's a good tip. Jessica, do you have anything from your kit that you'd like?
Anyone who has ever printed with me in their life, for one, I was probably flying off a plane carrying Bertha, my soul printer, by hand. So, I like to keep everything very small and compact and clean. And so I have even my travel kits, and I'm working on some projects with other KOLs to provide travel cases and solutions for other technicians like myself that work in the full arch community and doing these surgeries. I think the sky's the limit. I do not recommend buying from these, customized companies to get, either handling package. Harbor Freight offers a lot of solutions. Amazon offers a lot of solutions. But pick what works for you. But I do like clean trays like the silicone mat that Jed uses. I love the Dollar Tree. They have nice little things that you can kind of just easily set up your solution. And then one thing that I really love that a lot of people don't use, I use a plastic brush, a very soft brush. You could even use a toothbrush. I prefer to use a Revlon hair color brush. This helps me assist in cleaning my vats because that resin gets trapped, and the max fill numbers and, in between the crease of the film. So by using this soft plastic-based brush, I can put some alcohol in there and really scrub down, which eliminates my cleaning time if I need to actually clean a vat by, I would say, overhead. So that's my favorite one. And look for more from Jed and I. I'm sure we'll be posting some cool creations that we're coming up with from Harbor Freight and Amazon. So
perfect. Good. Great. All right. So a next question that we have is, why should I opt for the Soul as a 3D printer for models? And following that would be, what's the lifespan of the components that are printed by the Soul? So Jessica?
Actually, I'm going to give this to Jed because, believe it or not, I very rarely print models. Usually I'm chair side. The patient is the model. And it took me forever to convince Jed that the Soul was going to be a good model printer for him. So I would love to hear why he thinks that is based off the volume. And what was that second part of the question, Elon? The longevity of the part itself or the printer?
The parts.
Okay, well, Jed can answer that as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's a great printer it's really a great printer for small labs or clinicians. To give you an idea, we had it up at our last digital dental team course with Dr. McLaren. I had it up there with all the other printers that I have here. So we had about 8 printers up there. And I just had the basic facts of the printers, and everyone really liked the overall performance of the Soul because it really checks all those marks. It's accurate enough for your models and other things. It's very open, and you're able to print all types of class 2 products. So it's great for clinicians. As far as the longevity and lifespan, they built it really smart. And that's one of the cool things I really like about LCD is you don't have some of those added complications that you do with DLP. So for instance, with a DLP printer, because you have a light that's being projected and moving out, every DLP printer has its own calibration. All right. And so when you receive your printer, if you move it around the lab, you have to constantly calibrate it. And that light source is also degrading, which some companies don't tell you. So you need to constantly calibrate it for that, where LCD technology is just one-to-one. It's very simple. So even though your LCD screen is a consumable, and I want to say it's like $125 screen, I could be off. Jess can correct me on that. You'll get
for the Soul. It's going to be $200. For the Dentique, it's $150. But that's 10,000 hours. And Jed, I have the first Soul here in America behind me that I've been printing on religiously since last April, and I'm still on that original screen and then that original back. And it says a lot.
Yeah, so I think as far as the screens being an added consumable over a DLP printer, it's very marginal, and you have a lot more savings. So your VATs are very affordable. The screen's easy to change out if you do. Usually your screen will last as long as you let it. I would say most people that are going to need to upgrade or change out their screens is probably because of damage. Either it got gouged or they had a vat that leaked and it got resin all over it. And at that point, it's almost easier to just replace the screen than it is to switch, then to clean it out. So it's extremely durable. I mean, it's simple and it's durable and it's a bulletproof item. I mean, Jess, she travels around the country like crazy and she just uses it as a carry-on. Now, what other printing company can you do that with, right? That's not like that's a kid's printer, right? You would classify that. This is a kid's printer. Why are you carrying it on? It's like, no, this is a professional printer, but it's so simple and reliable.
The only way to get through TSA, Jed, I have to tell them because they look at me like I'm crazy. I have to say, this is a medical grade printer and I have patients to go see. And then they will allow me in and leave me alone. But everyone watches me and stares at me, especially getting on and off the plane, I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fantastic printer. It really kind of is an all-round do-all type printer. So it's a really big player in the space right now. Some people are maybe discounting it because the price is so cheap. They're like, there's no way it can be at the same level as other printers, but it really is. If you look at the stats of it and what it can do, it's performing right there with some of the other printers that are closer to $10,000. So that's, it's just, that's going to be the way of LCD. It's going to be a game changer and it's going to kind of put DLP out to pasture here over the next 5 years. So sorry, but news flash.
I like the sound of that. And, Jed, our first conversation ever, we're always doing predictability, working the R&D side. It's our job to know what's going to happen 5 years from now and not what's happening this year. And I think you and I have really held true to that statement. And we try our best to keep up with what's going on and give her the best advice and education we can possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without directly, bringing another printer company in and saying, hey, compare it to this company. I mean, really just look at the stats. The XY resolution of the Sol is at 49 or 47, maybe it's 47, but it's 49. It's got a 7-inch LCD screen, which is really large, really nice. It prints within 10% of the speed of any DLP printer. And with the small and medium build platforms they have for clinicians, which is a smaller platform that allows it to go even faster. So in some cases, it's even faster than some of your DLP printers. So it's really not only catching up to some of your nicest DLP printers out there, it's actually surpassing it as is. So really, yeah, so here's the medium build platform, which is really a cool idea for clinicians because they're not doing, 4 or 5 models or cases at a time. They're doing one with a patient right there. So it just allows you to go move a little faster. It removes some of those vertical pulling forces. And it's really, really an innovative technique. There you go for temporaries. So that's 15 minutes. So that's within an acceptable range to have a patient in the chair. Because you have to understand from a patient standpoint, they're getting prepped. So they're going to be in the chair numb for an hour, maybe hour and a half. And then you're going to ask them to wait while you design, print, clean, and cure something. And a lot of other processes, that's adding on a full hour. Okay. Where this, if everything goes well, you're going to be within a half hour. You're not going to have to renumb the patient. And the patient's not going to be yelling at you. So even if you give the patient something beautiful in the mouth, if they sat for another hour and you had to re-inject them, they're going to hate you for their whole life. And they're going to tell all their other friends not to go to you as a dentist because that was a crappy appointment. They don't care what's in their mouth. That was a horrible experience. So it's really about the patient care. And they're really focusing on that, which is really impressive for a newer company in the space. So kudos to Accurata.
Thanks for that, Jed.
Yeah,
we try.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
Yeah, we try hard.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much for that. I would also like to ask again our audience, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to add them in the tab below. We will be taking a few more. And again, a reminder that we're collecting donations right now for the United Ukrainian American Relief Committee, for the UARC. All donations will be going straight to them. We found this way through Facebook donations to get 100% of the donations to them without a transfer fee. So that's great. And again, we'll be from any sales coming from this on our bundles and our partners in the US will be donating as well 10% of the revenue there. And yeah, so if we don't have anything else, we'll go to the next question. Oh yeah, here you guys have a link. If you guys want to just go ahead and click that and donate now, anything is super helpful, and we're happy to have it send it over. So
please, please. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, please donate. I mean, this is really for a really good cause, and this is, this is something that it touches my heart. I know it's extremely close to Eugene. Eugene, thanks for watching and kind of getting this ball rolling and telling us what's the best way to help. But even if you don't have, family and friends that are directly affected by the situation in Ukraine, if you're like me, I have young kids at home, and they're able to go to school, they're able to play with friends outside, and the thought of our lives being interrupted to the point where we have to pack up and leave on foot or as far as we can drive, and have our whole lives uprooted or sometimes endangered. The thought of that should touch anyone. So this is really an important cause. It's really a cause that should strike everyone's heart, not just a fat softy like me. But thanks, Eugene. I really appreciate you for kind of steering us and helping us out with this. And please donate.
All right. So let's move on to our next few questions before wrapping up. This one comes in from Zuila Villar. In the near future, will you offer material to print flexible partials?
Very, very exciting idea. I think people are going to be impressed alone this year of how many different materials are going to come to market for so many solutions. And I think one of the company and resin manufacturers that are really leading these solutions that haven't been solved in the past is probably Graphy. And just as of last week, you can start seeing the calibration of Graphy's materials being completed and listed in the Alpha 3D software for printing. But Graphy is also going to be providing a flexible partial solution along with a clear aligner, direct aligner material, and then also a forged material that's going to be coming in at over 220 megapascals on FDA listing alone. Third-party testing has shown that much further. So obviously that temporary material along with that denture material is going to be a very successful outcome. It's just the calibration process does take time. We're very fortunate that they do have their FDA listings, and I'm not sure with Health Canada, but CE certification is there as well. So this is kind of a good time to highlight in the Alpha software. You'll say, okay, Jessica, there's so many different materials, there's so many resin manufacturers. Well, for one, other open systems, you would have to go and search and actually get that material parameter and profile, and then upload it into your slicing software. With Acuretia, they already come put into your software, and you're like, well, how many updates is this going to take? Because like you've said, you guys are dropping new calibrations every week. Every time that you close your Alpha software and then restart that Alpha software, if any calibration was done by our engineering team overnight while you were resting here in the United States, will be available to you in the morning by just simply restarting your software. Having that cloud-based aspect to the software allows us to do that, and it's something that is very beneficial to our customers to have full access to in real time as these calibrations are being completed and validated for these systems.
All right. Jed, anything to follow up on that?
No, I think it's where there's a big rush and a big push to move towards your removable prosthesis on a printer, and for good reason. I mean, when it comes to removables, there is an economic need. These are people who are usually either on a fixed income or they usually have some other economic restraints on them. They aren't always looking for a high-end type denture, right? So there's an economic need to provide cost-efficient removables. There's always going to be that, and printing looks to be a very positive solution in there. Now, with everyone rushing to it, there are people using maybe some non-FDA approved or very new materials on the market. I would just urge that you really vet these materials out, because again, these are going in patients' mouths. I'm less concerned about chemical stuff. I mean, all of us are eating McDonald's and stuff, so who cares about chemicals? But I'm more concerned about a patient, something breaking in a patient's mouth and some type of aspiration or someone piercing their cheek. Because as you know, if you have a printed part that breaks, it shears off and it's almost like a knife at that point. So you want to make sure that things have gone through the FDA, and then also that they've had other proper testing to make sure that they are good, they are truly flexible, and they're safe for people in their mouth. Those are the things that I really worry about.
All right, thank you. Okay, guys, I think we're about to wrap it up. So once again, if you haven't donated, donate it now. We have our links in the chat, and go over there and give whatever you can. It's for a good cause. And I would like to thank everyone that participated. Thank you, Jed. Thank you, Jessica, for being here, explaining everything. It was super interesting. And also shout out to Eugene Rosengert for helping us kind of find the way of where we should put the money and for this great cause and helping us out with all this. So again, thank you for everyone for being here. Do you guys have any last words you want to leave us off with?
I'll go ahead and go so Jed can close this up, being his webinar. But like you, Elon, thank you to everyone, and especially Eugene, and to our U.S. partners and distributors here who also are offering these bundles with local support and training. That's going to really bridge the gap, and very generous of you guys to be a part of this. It was very last minute, and everyone jumped on board to support. So thank you to those distributors as well. If you can, please donate. 100% of that donation will go. You don't need to buy something from us. Just get $1 in. And thank you, Jed, most importantly, for putting together all this time and this content so we could have something to all share and learn from and support Ukraine together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everyone. Thanks, Jess. Thanks to Gene. Thanks, Accurata. And also the distributors who have kindly agreed to donate 10% of anything that you purchase from them as well. And they're all listed here of approved distributors. So it's a great way. We all like buying stuff, so go buy something, but then also help out Ukraine. So thank you. Some people have asked where will they get my little calibration cube they can use. I will post it here shortly after, a link to it on Facebook and Instagram. And so you can give that a go and give it a try and make sure you're printing straight, right? So thank you to everyone. These are always fun things to do. And if you have more questions, please reach out to Jess or Accurata. They're great at taking care of people. So thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you, Elon.
All right. See you guys.